Welcome to everybody. It's really great to see people joining us for this last session in this week-long series of events that we've been involved with as part of the Global Mill Week from UNESCO. So we're just going to have a quick show of the agenda for this afternoon. So Miriam, maybe we can show the second slide just to remind people what's going to happen. We've three presentations from three highly experienced people on the topic of working with influencers. So I'm delighted to welcome Jane McGarrigle, my sister from Ireland. It's very nice to have another Irish woman in the session this afternoon from Webwise. We're also delighted to be joined by Deike Schulz from the European Influencers Academy in the Netherlands. And then last but absolutely no means least, Pieter Blomme from Chase and Wim Vanobberghen from VRT in Belgium. We have lots of time to talk to them. We will keep the time as best we can, and we will stop then at 3:30 here Central European time. So without too much more ado, I'd like to welcome our first speaker this afternoon. That is Jane, and she's going to talk us through their experience of working with influencers in Webwise in Ireland. Jane.
Yeah, so delighted to contribute our experiences to the event today. I'll give you a little bit of information just firstly about our organisation, Webwise. Webwise are the Irish Internet Safety Awareness Centre. We're funded through our own Ministry of Education, co-funded through the European Union, and we work as part of a network of safer internet centres across Europe. We're a member of the InSafe network. Our aim is to promote a safer, better internet among children and young people. We very much believe in the benefits of the internet, the opportunities, and really our work is about developing resources and messaging that help empower children and young people to make the most of the online world. So we have a whole suite of different education resources available on different topics such as digital media literacy, image sharing, privacy, security, and lots more. We do awareness raising in Ireland as well. That's a core part of our work. So we coordinate the annual Safer Internet Day initiative in Ireland. And today really does focus on our awareness raising work. So I'll talk more about that throughout. We're supported by a youth advisory panel. So we have 30 members, Irish teenagers from across Ireland who support our work. We meet with them regularly throughout the year to talk about the issues they're interested in, including influencers and content creators. They act as a voice for their peers. They also help input to national consultations and European consultations. And we've just finished up a consultation with them on an evaluation of the Better Internet for Kids strategy. We offer training for teachers as well in things like cyberbullying, digital citizenship education, and online safety. And of course, we offer information and advice for parents through our Parents Hub too. So I'm going to kind of start our influencer journey talking about, our awareness raising work. Traditionally, we do an annual awareness raising campaign that tackles a pertinent subject for teens and young people and parents and educators each year. And this traditionally takes the format of an online ad or a short film online. And we've created some very successful campaigns over the years with these short films that are promoted on social media. And we have paid media attached to them, so they might appear in cinemas or video on demand as well. And some of our previous campaigns, these short films have explored topics such as online bullying, our Silent Witness campaign, online well-being, our Full Picture campaign, which was developed during the pandemic when children and young people were spending lots of their time online. And we've also looked at online grooming. As I said, we've had some success with these campaigns over the years in terms of many of them have went viral, have had really good organic reach, supported by paid reach. And I've actually received some awards as well over the years too, which is brilliant. But we've also learned some things, and things are changing in terms of the media space and the online world, and in trying to reach young people in particular with these messages. Our learnings over the years from these campaigns, these short films, well, they appear to have captured females more have engaged with these campaigns and these videos. The video materials have worked as an excellent classroom resource, so we were able to bring them into the classroom and use them as talking points. They were very well suited to cinema, but maybe weren't as suitable for social media, particularly for young people watching on their phones. Parents and educators, they perform better with parents and educators versus the young people. And the videos are too long for young people as well. They're 60 seconds, 90 seconds. In feedback from our consultation with young people, we asked them, how do you decide if something is worth your attention? So we had about 30 people in the room. They said they give it 5 seconds. 5 seconds is the time they decide whether it's worth their attention. So I think it was important that we kind of reflect on these findings and see what we can do. We can't deny the important role that influencers and content creators play in young people's lives. And we do see an opportunity there as adding that into the mix of our awareness raising work. And we've started slow with this. I'm just going to share some feedback from what our young people have told us about the role of influencers and the benefits. You'll see some of their responses there. This was from a consultation we did with them back in April this year. Entertaining, promote small businesses, being able to see videos or posts about topics you may like, for example, fitness influencers. They can shed a new light in a hidden gem. Entertainment, some people idolize them like an older sister to people, can spread awareness, promote brands. You can feel a real sense of community when you link up with other people who share the interest with a certain influencer. They can bring joy and laughter. They can inspire kids to follow their dreams. We also talked about challenges of influencers as well, and I don't want to forget about that. They brought up things like advertising, transparency around that, mis and disinformation, and had concerns about authenticity as well. But why did we start kind of shifting our focuses to influencers and content creators as a channel to reach young people with our awareness raising? They do reflect the lives and interests of young people, and our young people have told us that they play an important role in the information they are now consuming online, and that's how they get a lot of their information and tips and advice. Working with influencers can be very targeted as well. I mentioned there that we struggled with maybe kind of reaching males or engaging males. Influencers are a good way to kind of maybe relook at that balance, so we can select different influencers and content creators who have more of an influence with the younger males that we're trying to reach as well. So it's a good way for us to look at that and re-establishing the balance. Can also help build audiences. The content creators and influencers have incredible reach, incredible audiences. So by partnering with them, we do have an opportunity to build our own audiences. Our young people have told us, they really kind of trust and believe what influencers are telling them. So it can be a more authentic message than perhaps some of the video campaigns that we have previously developed that have been successful. But this might feel like a more authentic message if we're telling it through an influencer or content creator. It's also a cost-effective way for reaching young people. I know that, many of the organizations working in this space, we have limited budgets, we have limited resources, we don't have money for huge television campaigns. So these type of kind of targeted campaigns can add real value for money. And you also have the opportunity to build on relationships with influencers and content creators and work on with them following a campaign. So how do we work with them? How have we approached them? How does this work in real terms? We started out a few years back just by kind of simply cold calling influencers, reaching out to them on social media, to see if they would share our campaigns. We've also contacted their managers. Most content creators and influencers have their management and agency details in their profiles. we've also approached them at events. We attend many events, not only in Ireland, but in Brussels as well, where we've heard influencers and content creators speak. And if we felt like they're a good fit, we went up and spoke to them afterwards. And actually, that's been really useful for us and successful. We can't pick the influencers who have reach and influence with the young people we work with. We simply don't know who they are. We can't guess who they are. We ask our youth panel at least twice a year, who are you following? Who are you listening to? Because it changes quickly as well. It doesn't stay the same. And they, we do mentees with them and we don't recognize any of the names. We don't know their names. These aren't people in our algorithms or in our news feeds. So it's really important that we ask young people who they're interested in and why they're interested in them. And some of the ways we've worked with them, we've invited them to contribute to our own youth events. We've invited them to share our campaign films and to get on board with our Safer Internet Day campaigns. We've also, if they've worked with us on events and stuff, we've also asked them if we feel like they're a good fit, if they maybe would be interested in doing further media work when we're trying to put together media or PR segments for Safer Internet Day. The producers really do get excited if they hear you are working with an influencer as well. We do try to balance that out with other experts as well, to ensure we're getting all the different messages out there. So I think it's important to kind of think of them as part of the mix, one part of the mix, and we also hosted an art exhibition with a really well-known Irish artist and painter who has a really big following online. You'll see the picture on the top left there from that exhibition. I think that was one of the kind of nicest events we did and most kind of successful engagements we had. We approached a well-known artist called Macer. He has over 50,000 followers on Instagram and he's a very well-respected painter in Ireland. And we asked him if he'd be interested in partnering on a national art competition for young people around the theme of respect and empathy online. And he just loved that theme and he really got behind it and really wanted to promote it. So he helped promote the campaign, and he also very kindly hosted the exhibition of the winning artwork in his own gallery in Dublin last year. And we had the Online Safety Commissioner come to that. And it was a really great media event, a really great event to show all the messages on the wall and to highlight on social media. On the top right there, you'll see Jacob Dunnigan, a TikTok creator we've worked with over the years. We met him in Brussels. And he's Irish, so we spoke to him afterwards and invited him to one of our youth panel events where he shared his experiences. He's a huge following online. His experience about, his audience growing, sharing his transition journey, navigating the pitfalls of social media and the opportunities. And it was a really, really inspiring talk for young people. On the panel with him, we had a couple of young people and quite a well-known journalist, young Irish journalist called Ro McDermott. She again has quite a big following online and has her own experiences of online harassment and was able to share her story. And the feedback we've had from those events, it was really great to hear from those types of people rather than having just adults talking at them. The young people, get a lot out of that. We've worked with other influencers such as Miriam Mullins, again, who has a very, very big following to talk about online well-being. And that was our event on the bottom right there from last year, our training event with young people. We had a tech journalist, an AI academic and expert, and protein bar boy from TikTok who has a huge following. That was the #1 request for who they'd like to hear from. Again, he just shared his journey about being online, and they were all buzzing afterwards, and just love kind of hearing from people that they look up to but seem more like them as well. So those sorts of things have worked very well for us, involving them in events and things like that. We've also collaborated with TikTok in previous years on Safer Internet Day, where they've helped find us some creators to help translate our Safer Internet Day messages for their own audiences. So we did a parenting campaign, which I'll share some videos from in just a minute, our online bullying campaign. We got 160,000 views from the creator videos, which is reaching an audience we wouldn't have been able to reach last year. We had a couple of TikToker creators translate our Tech in Our World campaign, and we've seen a really significant increase in views. There are 338,000 views of the TikTok creator videos. Again, we simply wouldn't be able to reach this on our own. We have a TikTok account. We don't have loads of followers on it, and we don't get loads of reach. So this is a really great way to help amplify our message, encourage participation in Safer Internet Day, and raise awareness of the event itself. So I'm just going to give you an idea of what some of those campaign videos are like. So just bear with me while I try and get up the video, and hopefully you'll all be able to see that. Okay.
That teenagers are spending up to 9 hours a day on the internet and their digital devices. That's more than an entire work week. Now, those of you who've been in a relationship will be used to the idea of asking your partner how your day at work has been. But do you do the same with your kids and their day online? Maybe we just find the topic too hard or too awkward to talk about. Maybe we're afraid of being labelled old or a boomer because we don't understand everything they do. Well, the 8th of February is Internet Safety Day. It's about time we bridge that technology gap. Webwise.ie has all the resources you need as a parent to help start some of those tricky conversations, like online privacy and sharing things online. Because it's about time we all started to talk, listen, and learn so we can help keep our kids safe online.
Funny. So fun. What's your favorite thing to do online? I love chatting with friends, seeing what's going on in the world, and saying names. Okay, thanks. Good. Perfect. Funny. What's up, man? What's not okay to share online? Okay, never share your passwords, bank details, phone number, or address. Go on. Funny. So bad. What would you change online to do? I definitely make it harder for you to send hateful messages anonymously. I think everyone deserves to be safe online. Okay, thank you. Funny. So, does the internet help or hinder your friendship? It can do both. Well, we can never forget how important it is to have actual genuine face-to-face interactions. Okay, cheers. Thanks. Funny. Okay. What's your favorite app right now? No, it's TikTok, man. Come on, has to be. One and only.
Webwise are calling on all parents to talk, listen, learn. This is to help parents understand the benefits and the challenges of the online world. It is so important for parents to be involved, engaged, and in the know of their children's online activity.
So that should give you an idea of just some of the kind of past pieces of work we've done. I hope you were able to understand the accents there. Some of them are quite strong, but I can share links to them afterwards. But you can see there are the different approaches there to the video messages, which is, I think, really great to see. And we really love that particular set of videos. So what are some considerations we'd advise other organizations maybe thinking about doing this? We're still on that journey, and we're not saying all the stuff we've done is perfect. You know, I think some of the things to think about is start small, don't jump right in, dip your toe in this. You know, the things like working with them at events or inviting them to speak at events has worked particularly well for them, or asking to share campaign messages. Do your research. It's really important if you are going to work with somebody, a content creator, influencer, it's important to find out as much as you can, to see if they align with your own kind of organizational goals and values, and that they're an appropriate person to work with. We obviously have to be very careful because the messages we are developing are specifically for young people. So we do have conversations with the people we work with about that responsibility. accountability and that important responsibility, you know, just to make sure they are a good fit, and to have that clear brief and a call to action as well. If you can make the brief as simple as possible, we've given various different briefs over the years to content creators, and we find that the simplest one-page ones have been the most effective, where we're giving them creative freedom. We can't pretend to understand what's going to capture a young person's attention in 5 seconds. So there does have to be a bit of trust that they know what they're doing, and they're aware of what trends are there. The trends change so quickly online. Agree terms and expectations, build relationships with them. So you do have the potential there to follow on and ask for, you know, keep engaged with them, keep them updated on the work you're doing, and encourage them to share your new campaign messages. But integrated as part of your overall strategy. It shouldn't just be the whole consideration. We're working on a media campaign, a national media campaign, and then the influencer strategy is only one arm of it. We're doing radio advertising, which is really good value for money as well. So just to consider where it fits within your overall strategy. So we are working on a new media campaign, and this is the first time that we're dedicating media budget and media spend to working with influencers as part of our Safer Internet Day campaign. So this is a big step for us in our journey. We've appointed a youth marketing agency, a very reputable one in Dublin called Think House, who are helping us identify 6 creators and influencers. And the outcomes of that will have a suite of content, TikTok lives, a hero piece of content that we can keep and that will live on. The aims of the campaign are to encourage critical thinking, promote diverse perspectives, managing online pressure and taking control. And we're going to look at identifying a range of diverse influencers to help spread that message. Some of the ideas we're working through with that creative agency is this send or swipe. Creators will bring real life scenarios where they are met with information online and question whether they should send it to friends or swipe it away. A creator swap where creators show up in other creator channels pretending to be them. True or false, and unfiltering falsehoods. I'm conscious of time, so I think I'll wrap it up there, but we're really excited about the next steps. And look, if anybody has experience doing campaigns with influencers or content creators, or I look forward to taking questions on that as well. And we'll certainly keep the networks posted on how those campaigns go. So thanks very much.
I'm going to move on to our second presentation this afternoon, and I'm really delighted to be welcoming Deike Schulz. Deike works with the European Influencers Academy in the Netherlands. Deike.
So first of all, about the European Influence Academy, the Influence Academy is actually a project by our professorship organizations in social media. We are part of NHL-Stenden University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands. And this is actually one of our flagship projects, I would say. I really also wanted to introduce our team because most of our team is involved in this project. And we are actually coming from a point of researching online communities. The professorship is already working in such a way since 2017. And for us, it's also interesting to look into online communication and the offline impact of that communication. And in that sense, we're also looking into what are the possibilities and the impossibilities of a value-driven influencer economy. In that sense, we also make the connection with responsible leadership and digital leadership, digital citizenship. And what's also important, because we're working on a University of Applied Science, is that all the research we are doing is applied research, and that we also can translate that into practice to organizations, so also to influencers. The Influence Academy is actually started in 2022, and we really focus on the understanding and exploring of the influence economy, which is relatively new for all of us, of course, and also the responsibility of influencers in business and society, because we know from a lot of examples that there is quite a negative sentiment at times around the influencers and influence economy. And what we like to do is really change that also by looking into more positive and best practices, and also in our research and especially in this project. So we're focusing on responsible influencing, responsible leadership. And we do this actually by coming together with influencers online. We do this 2 times a year. And every time a maximum of 10 influencers is coming to our university in Leeuwarden. And then they actually meet us. They meet our students, they meet our lecturers, they meet actually people who from the region who are living there. And they have really informed conversations with all of them. And they're also engaging with each other, which is very important concept of the influence of the swipe up weeks, we call these gatherings. And what's also important is that we have provide workshops. So we develop workshops based on various topics around the influence economy. Also, for instance, about filter bubbles. My colleague Sarah de Hoog, she's also joined us today. She is very an expert on that. So if there are questions about that, she can answer that also. And we organized these weeks now for 7 times. The last week was actually last week. And it was, again, a very vibrating, interesting gathering with influencers from all over Europe joining us and joining our workshop, our master classes about polarization, about authenticity as an influencer, about cultural differences. Students make analysis of the content of these influencers, and they also debate with the influencers live in Leeuwarden about their findings. So this is also how we learn from each other each week, and each week we learn actually more. About 500 students are now involved in this project since we started. So it is for us a very successful project. We learn a lot. We collect also a lot of data. The influencers are aware that we're collecting data and to learn about their practices, to learn about their mindsets. And actually it helps us to develop also more input which we can give back to the influencers. One of the things we will also do in the coming in the next year is develop a monitoring system in which we can also show this data to everyone via our website, europeaninfluenceacademy.com. So that everyone can get an insight into the influence economy in Europe. So it's also important. We will also do it together with other universities from Portugal and from Ireland, actually, from TUS. Now.
It is not a one way of sharing information. For the professorship as well, we can collect data and we can ask questions around responsible influencing. These questions focus on what is meaningful communication for the influencers, what do they see as their responsibilities, what are the struggles in creating content and building these online communities, what role do these influencers play in society.
I think the added value is that they can finally meet others, that they can finally discuss what's going on there in the influencer economy. Being an influencer can be very lonely. People have high expectations, and I think if you bring a certain amount of people together, it's very great to explore and experience the views from others and also maybe learn from each other. I think that's the most important part. We also want to do research. We want to understand the influencer economy, and this is a very great way to do so.
The added value for the participants mainly has to do with creating more awareness around what the effects of their communication on social media is. The things that we read or see on social media become more trusted, then the message becomes more important and more trusted. So it is important that social media influencers are aware of their responsibility in communication and that the message is of higher quality.
So this is just a glimpse from what we're doing, and I just wanted to also respond already to Jane, what Jane said about how we reach out to the influencers. I think it's also interesting how we did that, because we had also to start somewhere, and actually we had a bit of luck because we were at the university. And so what we did first of all is asking our students is which influencers from Europe, because we are an international university, is should we invite? So this is also the first step we did when we were inviting students to come to Leeuwarden and meet us in real life. So I started the story with telling you a bit about the best practices. So this is one of our really best practice we're now developing, sharing with businesses and with society. And we also do case research. So this is also the second part of my presentation, is that we are now just starting to do also research into influencer management agencies. And we just finished a pilot study with a German-based influencer management agency called Instinct Free. And for us, it's also interesting because we learned from the European Influence Academy that to the Swipe Up Week, so the week we organize, there are also influencers coming who are with influencer management agencies. So there are different business models there, people working together in a different way. So this is also an important dimension for us to look into. So this is one of the first studies we did. I think it's also one of the first studies in Europe about influencer management agency, and in particular about how they work as a value-based community. So just briefly about Instinct Free. Instinct Free is an in-game influencer management organization from Germany, from Berlin. They founded in 2018. About 80 people are working there, and they're working together with 17 influencers, which have about like 7 million followers in total. What were the last numbers I know from. And they're also working as a creative agency and an artist management. This is often what you see right now in the industry, that influencer management organizations are really combining these tasks. They are doing creative campaigns and also working in artist management, just as you know, in film or the music industry, for instance. And they also are working in esports, and with all the influencers are really connected with these themes, most than with gaming. These are two of their main influencers they are working with. Hand of Blood is also the founder of this company, and also female game influencers, which are not so many around yet. And I also came across this quote, was really also illustrating the mindset they have as a company, which was also interesting for us to further explore in our research. So to say also that the zeitgeist is demanding antisocial content, but since we're called influencers for a reason, let us influence the zeitgeist. So that was really for me an invitation to look more into their company, and I was really happy that they were open to invite us to have this pilot study in Berlin, and have interviews with the staff and with the CEOs. And for us, it was really to understand their rules, their routines and roles within this organization. So what we found in this study was, first of all, there were some organizational community essentials. For instance, in this organization, feedback culture is very, very important. We actually saw that on different levels. So the first level is that people give each other feedback, which is really normally in organizations, of course, but was also interesting to see that really they are doing this not in a hierarchical order, but for instance, an employee is also possible to give feedback to a CEO and vice versa. So, and also what they're doing is translating this feedback to the online communities, because the feedback culture within the organization is also translated to the online communities. So what they also do in the artist management teams is that when there is feedback coming from these communities, this feedback is also translated again into the company so that they can learn from it and do something with it. And that was really interesting to learn in this study, and was also interesting to learn from an organizational point of view as someone who is working together with these organizations, is that they also gave the feedback back to their clients if they're getting feedback from the community. So there was also this triangulation of feedback loops, which was very interesting to see. And I think if someone wants to collaborate with influencer agencies or the influencers, it's always important to have in mind that this feedback loop is also happening in this specific in these situations. And then also what's also important in these organizations is that people learn together, and they're really also motivated to learn together and to innovate together. So they were invited to bring their personal and also professional topic to the table and discuss it. So it was not only always about technical issues like social media issues, but could also be about disinformation, for instance, or it could be about how in German it's a discussion right now how to use gender language in their postings online, for instance. So and they're helping each other in that sense, which brings me also to the next important business strategies I see within this influencer company. One of them is brand checks. So I think that is also really connected to their organizational values, is that they're each campaign they are doing, they're actually looking into the brands and they're researching the brands, they're collecting information about the brands, and then they try to bring that back and to connect it with what the influencer is also sharing about certain products, if there's product placement and talking points they're using in their postings. It was also interesting then to see is that the artist management teams is also discussing with the influencer if you want to use this information, and based on that information could also make an informed decision if they want to work together with a certain brand. And it was even going on a level that a team member could also decide if a certain company is not really in line with their values, they could also decide not to join the team at that point and join again on the next campaign, for instance. So again, there is a combinations and a kind of loop developing, and that people can really have an informed decision. And I think that is also very much connected with media literacy skills, which were also identified within the company. But having said that, these skills, they're actually on a personal level and on a professional level. For example, about how to use social media on a personal level. What I was also insightful was that influencers, for instance, don't use social media so much in their personal life. I think perhaps it's also professional, but on the other hand, they also I learned a lot from employees within the companies and also the influencers, that they are telling me like they are, for instance, training the algorithm of their personal feed of their social media. So there are some media literacy skills also in place. But on the other hand, what I also often heard, and I think is something we also should keep in mind, and also I think the next speaker will tell about us something about that, is that they're really aware of the fact that they need also more training in that area, so that they are also able to, for instance, identify disinformation, so it won't become misinformation in their channel. So this is really important because they're also aware about the fact that there are role models and that they are, of course, influencing their followings. But what I also learned within this company was that the influencers I talked with, they also said this, they didn't call it role modeling. That's actually how we call this theme now. But they actually said, so there are some things which are important for me or for us as a team. And we really try to show that to the communities, but not really pushing it. It should be just coming natural to us, and it's the same also working together with brands. There should be a match. If there's not a match with our values, we won't do this. So that is very insightful to learn from these influencers and also the communities around them, because what I also learned was that the communities really protect them, and if there are hateful comments in the communities, often participants stepped in. There are also influencers who have monitoring teams. These are most of our voluntary jobs, which people are fans of these channels join, and they join the teams. And I really love to be the monitoring team, for instance, on live feeds, on YouTube channels, and really to support the influencers also, for instance, with hateful comments, with trolls, or what could happen in these kind of channels. So just to round it off, because there are really a lot of connections between these two initiatives, of course, is for us, for the European Influence Academy. I think most of the important learnings for us was that the influence come together offline in Leeuwarden. They are meeting our students, they're meeting us. They're learning from our research, we learn from them. So that is really co-creation, that we can exchange thoughts with them, there with us, and with each other, which is very important, because what we learned already is, if you don't have this safety environment of an influencer management agency in which people help each other, for instance, older or more experienced influencers help younger or newer influencers, they really need other people also to discuss what they experience in their channels, which we often forget, I think, because they're also, if they're making content, asking themselves, what is the best way? How can I do this in an ethical way, in an authentic way? What do I need? What is interesting to learn for the future? What kind of content should I make? So these are questions they're asking each other, and they're helping each other as well. So that's also a very important side effect we gained with organizing these swipe up weeks. And yeah, of course, with the influencer management agency, there's the feedback culture. I think that is something that's really important. And I could imagine if influencers not really connected with an influencer management agency, it could be also interesting to develop a kind of network with other influencers to exchange thoughts and learn from each other, have discussions and debates about certain situations they are engaging or people are meeting. For instance, how to have a response strategy to hate comments. And also what I already pointed out, being a role model, but not really pushing it. That is a very important point from this case study, and the community support. So what I also learned, there is this commercial organizations on the one hand, but there also this really voluntary community on the internet supporting them. That is also an interesting insights we gathered from this study. And it's also interesting to further explore that in the future. So we also will do more case studies. We're preparing right now another case study. And yeah, and I hope we can share this information in the coming months. Thank you.
Deike, thank you so much. We'll leave your slide up for a moment so people can get your contact details and know where to reach you. Thank you so much. It's been really, really interesting. A couple of things that struck me. If anybody would like to put any questions to you, please post them into the chat now, and I'll pick them up for Deike. But I mean, first of all, I just wondered, when you talked about your first project, when you're bringing together the influencers group, apart from them coming recommended by your students, what other criteria did you use? Did you look at the size of following, or what selection criteria did you use?
Actually, we started with, we said we would start with micro influencers, so until like 10,000 followers. But in the meantime, we also had influencers would have more than 20,000 followers. So like 100,000 of followers also. And I think even millions. I'm not sure really.
Okay.
But I think that perhaps Sarah can answer that question if she is around.
Okay, Sarah, if you could stick that into the chat,
yes.
that'd be great. Just the selection criteria. I think it's just interesting.
And of course, our selection criteria is also that they are coming from Europe, or they are creating content for a European environment.
Audience, yeah. And when you say the European Influencers Academy, are you working with similar organizations in other countries that people might like to follow up with?
Yeah, of course. What already pointed out, we are part of the Run EU network as a university, and based on that, we're working together with a university in Portugal, Lira, and we're also working with TAS in Ireland, So these are the organizations we're working right now together with, and we're also building the monitoring system with. And actually, it's interesting also to tell that also students in Portugal and students in Ireland will start to collect data about influencer accounts, so that we can build this monitor, can feed this monitor in the future. So,
and is this a short-term project, or do you see it going on?
No. The idea is really to build that and to make it to develop it into a sustainable initiative in which we can really show on a yearly basis, for instance, how this influence economy is developing on certain topics.
Great. Yeah, really interesting, I think, for us to know going forward. Just one final thing. I mean, you obviously, influencer management companies are key to this whole story. I mean, do you recommend people who want to make their first outreach towards working from the media literacy community, for example, to working with influencers to try and track down their local management company? Is that a good way to start, do you think?
Yes, and of course, I think if someone wants to work to collaborate with an influencer management company, they also should do some research looking to the company and also get more understanding how they work, what their values are. And I think it's also this case study. I think when we're publishing it next year will also help to people to look at what kind of organization I want to collaborate with, because it's not only influencers who is looking for, is this in line with my values, but it's also, of course, the organization who is looking at, is this in line with our values. So I think that's for both sides. It's interesting also to do some research and not just looking up an agency and say, oh, I'll just collaborate with it. I would also look at kind of influence working there, look at the channels, but also look at what kind of message do they have as a company, and also do their practice what they preach. That's, I think, also important.
Yeah, I see Jane nodding away as well too, because she's obviously worked with
Yeah.
a reputable and they have a good working relationship in Ireland. Thank you so much, Deike. You're going to stay with us. We'd like to move on to our third presentation this afternoon, and I'm delighted to welcome Wim Vanobberghen and from VRT, the National Public Service Broadcasters in Flanders, Belgium, and Pieter Blomme from Chase. So they're going to talk us through some of the work that they're doing with influencers. So I think over to you first, Wim, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So first of all, we are, Chase and Pieter and myself, we worked on a project called Counterscam. Counterscam has received funding from the Flemish government, and it was also focused on Flanders, which is the northern region within Belgium. And it's a collaboration between three partners. It's Chase, and I will introduce Chase later on during the presentation, but it's an agency for content creators. They built a community for content creators. Of the Checkers, which is a platform and a community for fact checkers, and VRT, which is the public broadcaster. And here, particular, the news section was involved, so or let's say, or fact checkers. So what is Counterscam about? Why was it, let's say, launched? Why did we go for this project? It's because that like a couple of years ago, basically in 2002, we had some studies, of course, within VRT, but also wider in Flanders, where we saw that a lot of young people are actually no longer following news to the traditional channels, but are turning to, let's say, content creators. And on the other hand, we see that a lot of young people, about 40% in those studies, claim that they had actually troubles, or at least 40% were very sure that they could recognize this information. So we saw there's a challenge in that age group between, let's say, 12 to 35 years old, because meanwhile they change a bit. And of course, we also see there's a rise of content creators. So how can we connect? What can we do? And so Counterscam, let's say the main aim was to empower, let's say, young people in Flanders to resist disinformation on social media platforms and to actually contribute by sharing news that's based on facts. We believe in counter-scamming collaboration, so we wanted to overcome a little bit the misconceptions that were prevalent, saying like, those influencers, they're maybe only out there, to get some gain. On the other hand, those fact checkers, they're mainly only boring people writing articles that are not interesting or that I cannot really work with. So we want to really collaborate and nurture each other with the expertise that each of us had in their particular domain. And so important for us was to do that by stimulating a conversation with digital content creators, a conversation with fact checkers, and a conversation with young audiences that are active on social media and get their news. So that was, let's say, the big philosophy behind Counterscam. First of all, of course, to make that happen, that conversation, we had to do a first action, and that was actually first create a community in Flanders around the Checkers. The Checkers is a platform that originated 2 years ago. Actually, the director of the Checkers sent his apologies. He could not join here today, but he's of course willing and interested in the recording of this session. But the Checkers actually is a social profit that actually wants to feed the public debate with facts and information literacy tips by means of collaboration between different journalists from different news media in Flanders. And towards the broad public, they actually want to help citizens to discern facts from fictures in online coverage so that they, of course, can form their own fact-based free opinion. They do that practically by actually being a little bit what they call the B2B platform, or the, how is it called? The hotels and the Airbnb, my apologies. So literally to be a little bit the Airbnb of different fact check providers that are making fact checks in the Dutch language. So they have a platform where you can find fact checks from the VRT, from NAC, but also now from DPA. So it's a German organization, but they have fact checks also that relate to Flanders. From Newscheckers, which is an organized fact check organization from the Netherlands, RTBF, which is the French-speaking public broadcaster in Belgium, and then also a magazine called Health and Science, so Gezondheid en Wetenschap, which is actually focusing on Flanders and the Netherlands to provide health-based information. So you can all find that on their platform, thecheckers.be. On the other hand, they also established a community of fact checkers, but also of citizens that are interested in today's information and want to share tips. So via WhatsApp, via a lot of direct messages, opportunities via different social media, you as a citizen can actually tip the checkers by stating, hey, something is spreading around there, so news, can you maybe verify whether the claim that's in that news is correct or not? And they would relay that claim to various fact checkers in Flanders. But what they see actually is, of course, that they should try to reach that difficult to reach audience of young people. And they actually came to the realization that they have their own channels, but it's also interesting to work together with content creators. And so they were looking for a way to set up a structural collaboration with an institute that could, that was working maybe around the same concern. And actually in setting up this project, we met Chase, and we said there, actually we connected with Chase and start to exchange like, look, what can actually we do together, the Checkers, VRT and Chase. And why was Chase interesting? Because Chase is a community today that consisted of about 1,500 creators and influencers on Flanders, and its core mission was to support creators to reach artistic liberty. It's doing that in various ways. It's to connect creators, it's to share practical tips and tricks, it's also to provide coaching, set up a lot of events where actually the creators could meet, but also could exchange with various experts, and also look for job opportunities and some practical, let's say they can find practical answers. But important, why is this important? Because actually by working with these creators, which are about, if you say in Flanders, you can actually say that there are about 30,000 to 40,000 content creators, including influencers. They are working on different niche, but what we actually see is that contributors, and that's been said, I think, in both presentations, they have their particular communities, they care about their communities, and they put their communities first. But on the other hand, those creators also want to become a little bit entrepreneurs. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's important, again, in that move, we see personal brands taking care of their communities. But, and that's important, those creators, and that was the learning of Chase, was that they really were caring about scams that appear around them. And actually they want to provide that scams actually circulate within their own communities because of them. Why? Because scams actually has a negative or can have a negative impact on their personal brand and their branding partners. So partly, of course, it relates to be credible, but on the other hand, if they start spreading scams and they would be attacked by it, or at least accused of spreading scams, that it will also a little bit underpin the deep relations they have established with their audience and their communities. So it's important for Chase that they also say, we want to invest in creators, we want to support them and invest them also in becoming more aware of disinformation and give them more, let's say, tips and tricks and to cope with disinformation, but actually make them also active participants in fighting disinformation on online platforms. So we found each other and we said, okay, let's move this project along. We got funding from the Flemish government to set up actually practical collaborations. And how did we do that? So first, maybe
Welkom allemaal, wij moeten iets toegeven. De video die wij verspreid hebben over Griffin, de nieuwe bar, is weg.
Ja, we hebben jullie gescamd.
Counterscam is een project waarbij factcheckers samenwerken met content creators. En dat is eigenlijk een unieke samenwerking. En normaal gezien gaan factcheckers artikels schrijven waarbij dat ze nieuws dat ze tegenkomen dat fake is, of fake zou kunnen zijn, dat ze dat controleren of dat nu waar is of niet waar is. Ik vind het heel interessant om als factchecker samen te werken met content creators. Je merkt dat die mensen heel anders in de wereld staan, zal ik zeggen. Dat die heel erg bezig zijn met hoe dingen eruit zien, hoe dat je dingen kunt overbrengen. En dat is iets waar wij als factcheckers veel van kunnen leren, denk ik. Wij zijn bezig met, ja, klopt dit niet? En veel minder bezig met hoe dat we die boodschap uiteindelijk verkopen, hoe dat we die boodschap aan de man brengen. En ik denk wel dat dat belangrijk is. Voor mij is factchecking telkens opnieuw een soort lesje in mediawijsheid, dat je mensen leert hoe dat ze zelf dingen kunnen controleren. En als wij dat weten, maar wij kunnen dat niet overbrengen, dan zijn we daar niks mee. Dus het is heel belangrijk dat wij van content creators horen hoe dat we dat best doen en hoe dat we dat op een frisse manier kunnen doen. Content creators, dat zijn YouTubers, podcasters, Instagrammers, TikTokkers. Die maken normaal gezien leuke content of interessante content voor hun eigen followers. Het unieke aan dit project is dat factcheckers samenwerken met die content creators om bij hun followers fake news te bestrijden. We gebruiken daar allerhande technieken voor. We zijn onder andere een community aan het bouwen van content creators die echt geïnteresseerd zijn in fake news. Zij worden geholpen door journalisten om dat op een goede manier en op een interessante manier bij hun eigen followers te doen.
Fake news stuurt vooral weer op sociale media. En omdat er veel mensen zijn die vooral daar hun nieuws halen, eerder dan van andere kanalen, is het belangrijk dat we daar geen dingen delen die slechte informatie zijn, maar goede, gecheckte informatie laten delen.
We willen met Counterscam dat mensen op sociale media ook diezelfde ontmaskering van een scam kunnen zien. Op Instagram, op TikTok of op YouTube. Liefst eigenlijk via hun favoriete influencers, omdat die heel veel invloed op hen heeft. En het beste van alles natuurlijk is dat mensen die op sociale media rondscrollen, dat die snel doorhebben dat ze gescamd worden. En dat ze daar ook actief dat gaan melden aan elkaar in de comments. En in het beste geval dat ze zelf ook een factchecker inroepen om hen ter hulp te komen.
Mijn platform dat ik heb als creator is ook eigenlijk een informatieplatform. Dus iedereen die daar komt kijken, ja, gaat daar ook info meenemen, of dat ze het nu willen of niet. Maar daarom is het voor mij wel interessant om ook wel stil te staan bij het feit van oké, die informatie die je meeneemt, ja, die moet eigenlijk ook wel zeg maar ergens gestaafd zijn. Ik ben niet iemand die bewust fake news gaat verspreiden, maar het zou zomaar eens per ongeluk kunnen gebeuren door gewoon iets te reposten of over iets te praten. En ik heb nu zo bij dit project een beetje een andere kant gezien en ook veel meer bewust geworden daarvan hoeveel machten dat je als creator daarin hebt en welke kanten dat allemaal kan opgaan. Bijvoorbeeld nu specifiek bij AI, ik ga dat wel kunnen zien wanneer het AI is. En blijkbaar is het allemaal niet zo simpel. Dus dat is eigenlijk de grootste takeaway dat ik nu zo heb.
Fake news is eigenlijk een probleem waar niet alle content creators wakker van kunnen liggen. Zij zijn voornamelijk bezig met algoritmes te bestrijden, zeg maar, zo goed mogelijk gezien te worden bij hun following. En fake news bestrijden, ja, dat gaat een beetje op het achterplan, omdat zij heel veel andere dingen moeten doen om te overleven als content creator. Dankzij dit project kunnen we daar nu wel extra ook op inzetten.
Ik heb heel veel jonge mensen in mijn community die soms met dingen afkomen die ze op TikTok hebben gezien, waarvan ik denk van oké, dat zal wel niet kloppen. En nu heb ik ook wel, zeg maar, meer de know-how om daar ook wel echt op in te gaan van nee, er is echt wel fake nieuws en fake informatie en check die bronnen, want dat is super belangrijk. Ik zie mezelf als content creator en influencer daar wel zo een belangrijke voorbeeldrol in hebben.
Alle lessen die we daaruit trekken, die gaan we allemaal mooi documenteren en filmpjes rondmaken. Je kan die nu al bekijken op de socials van Chase en op de socials van de checkers. En daar krijg je heel veel tips en tricks om te weten te komen hoe je als content creator fake news kan bestrijden en hoe dat je followers kan erop wijzen dat er zoiets is als fake news en wat dat ze ermee moeten doen.
So I also showed the movie in extent because you really see that we were really putting fact checkers and content creators really together and to really work out on concrete cases. I will come back to that now. But so what did we first do? So first we actually Chase established within their own community of content creators a specific disinformation channel called Counterscam, so the name of the project, which actually consisted of a few actions. There were some practical tips and tricks on how to recognize disinformation. It was also about raising awareness, and we did that also by videos. Those videos are in Dutch. I will show you maybe one where we actually see that our community manager of Chase actually starts raising this. There's a problem with videos here, my apologies. Second, so I will maybe move to the next slide. Secondly, what we did, besides establishing a channel, was actually setting up first around knowledge exchange workshops, because actually what we saw was that actually first we need to be sure that content creators start knowing each other and that fact checkers start knowing content creators. So what are needs from both parties? How are they working? How can we actually exchange that kind of insights to those groups? I try to do this. So actually those are short videos from those workshops. So you see, we really did it within more, let's say, also the workspace of content creators. And this, in total, we actually did 5 workshops. So first, get to know each other. Secondly, understand each other's flows. But then third, we actually decided to work on 3 use cases within our project where specific content creators would work together with fact checkers. So we did a workshop around mental health. Again, always around 3 attention points. How can we work, how can we bring the message by content creators in a more nuanced way to their audience? How can they detect disinformation? But thirdly, also, how can we work with the capacities and characteristics of different platforms? So we're not going to stick to, let's say, TikTok. We would really look at a broader scale. And so for each of those themes, we selected mental health, AI and technology, as well as climate and environment. We wanted to address those 3 questions. And based with that broad knowledge, we would actually start working on use cases. I come to the use cases in a minute, but for that we actually developed a methodology along those 3 use cases. So first, it was important to define the framework, and secondly, to of course make a good selection of fact checkers and content creators that are suited to work within that use case. You can actually see in those first 2 steps that actually it was the community leaders of the Chase and the checkers that took more or less the lead. But then in the next 2 steps, when it was really on creating the fact check on different social media, then we actually gave the lead to the fact checkers and the content creators itself. And of course, the community leads from the checkers and Chase more or less guided the process. What happened maybe in step 3 and 4, because I think that's really the most interesting. What we always did was to actually start with a physical start meeting. And that start meeting had really 3 objectives. It was actually to detect a good story that was going around and then really pinpoint the claim that we were going to work on. So which kind of claim did we actually have to, let's say, counter scam, but then actually put forward into the video. What was then actually going on social media about that team, which kind of storytelling is interesting, which kind of format can we then actually use and is relevant. And third, what are then we would make, let's say, the broad scenario and script. And then and that depended, of course, a little bit on the characteristic of the influencer and the platform they're working and the flows they have. But then we set up a real fast online flow where we could really iterate quickly on what was defined into that startup meeting. But again, we start from the workshop, we go to the use case, and those first physical interactions in the beginning were really important to land then with your product via more online interactions. And then fourth, of course, you end with a publication strategy where we're going to look like, okay, is the profile of the content creator, does it have enough reach maybe to work organically, or do we have to actually also push it a bit via advertising? And if we advertise, which kind of outcome is it that we're actually going to advertise and to create the impact we wanna get? So that's a little bit the use case methodology. We followed over 3 use cases. What are then the 3 use cases? And I already showed the movie for 5 minutes because one of the pictures there shot was one of use case 2. So on the first use case, we worked with an influencer called Onbespreekbaar. When you put on the links, when you get the presentation, you can go to their profiles, but I put some pictures here. He's kind of a leading, let's say, content creator in Flanders when it comes to making mental wellness. When he says, yes, it should be an open topic, there should not be taboos around that. And so, but there we defined like, let's take Instagram, because Instagram has a notion of being interactive, but actually when you want to give a message from yourself to your audience, it's actually quite restrained. And actually there we wanted to translate the fact check as close as possible to the original fact check, and also to stay as close as possible within the format that the content creator has itself. So I will show you the result later. The second medium we actually explored was Twitch, and that was completely other scope, because there it's really about dialoguing around fact checks. We see that when you work with Twitch, you have to talk, you have to do a whole show. So we used 2 other influencers that are content creators, sorry, that are kind of known in Flanders. And thirdly, on the third topic of let's environment, there we worked around TikTok. But there we said, let's maybe combine the lessons we have from use case 1, use case 2. Let's combine it. So let's let them make a translation of the fact check, but then give them more liberty. So we did also let them more adapt, meaning that you should not only translate the fact check, you could get more liberty, but you still should quote the fact check. And thirdly, they could make their own interpretation, and we call that an alternative to the fact check, but still, of course, work around the claim that we had to nuance in or say it's yes, fault in one way or another. But there, the medium we chose was TikTok. Important is that all of these content creators, what we avoided was to select content creators. I forgot to mention the previous slide. What we avoided was to select content creators with a broad spectrum of topics. We really focused on those content creators that are working on a specific niche, and hence we also try to avoid the real small ones and the real big ones. We really wanted to take those that have a kind of potential as well, but within their niche are having a kind of audience that's more or less stable, and which they have a certain interaction. So let's maybe show the first use case, which is a little bit a literal translation. I showed you in the previous slide how the Onbespreekbaar looks like. But if you look at it here, we really straightforward start in his format, and then actually put the fact check here, where we put a claim. Then actually we give the text from the fact check, and then also say like, okay, this claim, this is actually what scientists say about that. The second format, I will not show the whole show because it lasted 1 hour, but there we really went into a dialogue. I will show it again. Here you have the fact checker, and here you have the content creator, and they're really debating about AI and technology, where you, for example, see in minute 9, where we go to fact checks and where you can find them online.
Gemaakt door de ChatGPT verzonnen. En op die manier, dat is natuurlijk schadelijk, want die methode was niet zo wetenschappelijk onderbouwd als echt.
So that's really dialoguing 1 hour. And there we managed to have live, and it was live on Twitch, we managed to have around 8,000 views, which is actually quite good for a Twitch score, because of course people can also rewatch later, but we had 8,000 young people actually joining live and interacting. So that's very good results. And then actually for use case 3, we combined those 2 formats before, but we went one step further. And here, for example, is an adaptation by one influencer where there was a claim about Taylor Swift, whether I think she was polluting with her airplanes, and she did it really in her own style. So I will.
Okay, hear me out. Ik heb echt een hekel aan mensen die.
Excuse me, it's the. So she did it in a very in another way.
Griffin.
So that's that's what really was made out of a collaboration of fact checkers and content creators.
Okay, hear me out.
Sorry. Yep. And then finally, it was announced already in the movie. What actually also is important as a very lasting result. Of course, the videos are useful on people that like to get inspired to tell content. But here actually we made a kind of online playbook. It's in Dutch, but it's available out there for free, where we actually grasp the lessons out of our project. It are talks between the content creators that participated, and you have one in the elaboration of use cases, the fact checkers that collaborated, and it's all hosted also by content creators. The topics are the following: what's fake news and why is this a problem? How are fake news and activism, and how they may be intertwined with each other? Science and fake news. How can you still, as an influencer, talk nuanced about the topic and still be sure that you reach your audience, you don't lose them? On artificial intelligence, is it a bless or is it a burden for fake news? How can you keep your authenticity as a content creator when you're advertising? And finally, also it's about fake news and communities. So here, all the lessons and the media literacy aspects are provided. So I will have to go, but this is how it looks like when you would go online. So besides the episodes, you can also find more links to studies that are available online, and that can be an inspiration as well. Each episode is around half an hour. And so you can also find it on Spotify and on counterscam.bu. So I can kindly invite you to maybe go there. I will close my presentation in a minute because I think we're around.
We proberen onze taal intentioneel anders aan.
And so maybe the 10 takeaways, and that's the last minute of my presentation. What would happen, we think, when journalists and content creators fight disinformation together, or at least what happened, but what can we learn about this? So first, we see that, of course, keep in mind that confidence in creators is great by their communities. People trust really real people. So really work on that dynamic as well. So that also means that the creator is, of course, transparent towards his or her community about his intentions. And also, maybe it's important what we see arriving is that journalists are also more and more maybe becoming creators, because we see also we as a public service, we also go now on online channels. So there is a new role as well, probably in the future, for journalists as well, and which they can learn maybe today from content creators. The confidence in the creators is great. I already mentioned it, so don't harm it. It's important that content creators are aware of that. But also important is that when you work with these fact checks, it's important that you have authorities, that you have, I labeled here known faces, but you should work with faces that of course give confidence to people, especially when it relates to the source that says that news is true or not true. Creators are often in the line of fire. It's something we forget. When you are going as a creator to engage in that battle of disinformation, what happened is in one of the movies that were made, suddenly one of the content creators really got a lot of comments by also people that deny climate change, for example. So it's important that you also support creators at that moment. They don't know always how to do that, to cope with critique and so on. So that's something that we also learned. It's also important, of course, that not any creator is suited for this task. It's important that when you as fact checker wants to establish a connection also with content creators or influencers, that you do a decent selection processes. And of course, it means also selecting what is this content creator doing, why it can be interesting for me, but also on the other hand, what's the business sometimes of that content creator as well, and can it be suited for what I want to do. The authenticity and the credibility of the content creator is, of course, at stake. So that's also important when you work here. And finally, we learned that it's not so simple, of course, to inform in an accessible, correct, and nuanced way on social media. There is no golden bullet. There's no golden solution. And it's always, customization, looking at what's the news item, what's the style of the content creator, and what's the platform. Thus, finally, what we learned in the project is that fact checks, they can be transformed into something informative and entertainment at the same time. But again, at the core to achieve that is to have an honest dialogue between both groups. And we believe that, of course, that if journalists and content creators collaborate really in a genuine way, then 1 and 1 can really become 3, as we say. So the main takeaway is trust is really important. Keep that trust, inform in an accessible and nuanced way. Always remember the authenticity and the credibility of the creators is constantly at stake. So you also go into a certain dynamic there. And we believe that collaboration between journalists, fact checkers, and creators create mutual benefit. And it also creates mutual trust and respect. So actually both, let's say, are becoming more literate about each other than before the project. So if you want to find out more about the project, please don't hesitate to send us questions. Here you have the contact details. And for sure, maybe go to counterscam.be to explore our playbook.
Maybe I'd just like to ask Deike and Jane as well to join us on the screen. Thank you very much. Just any final thoughts you all have. We're really happy to share everybody's resources. Everybody's very contactable. But Deike, maybe from you, any last thoughts before we close out for this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm really happy to see that all our initiatives are connecting really so closely, and I think they all that we all now really focusing not only on, I would say, the dark side of influencing, but also on the good side. And I think that will also be some good work for me to round off for today. And I would really like to collaborate more with also my colleagues who presented here today. You do such fantastic work, and I can think that we can also build together a much bigger network in that sense.
I certainly put with women, with Pieter, I think this connection between fact checkers and influencers is a really interesting route for us to pursue, certainly within the EDMO community as well too. So thank you so much for that. Jane, any last thought from you?
Yeah, just to echo what Deike said, and I think it's really important that we continue to have events like this and keep meeting up and hearing about all the important initiatives and innovative ways that we can look at promoting media literacy. So great to hear from the other colleagues on the call. And again, we'd like to stay connected as well afterwards.
Sure, and we're happy to help that and support that. Wim and Pieter, any last thoughts as well? Thanks so much for your time. Sorry for rushing you.
I think creators have not always have the mental leverage to focus on disinformation, but if you invest in another way in creators, they will have this more. They can have more attention for that.
Yeah. That's a great way to close. Thank you so much. That's really good. Thank you to everybody. It's been really a really interesting afternoon. I hope that people who took part as well have got something from it and enjoyed this session. The recording will be available, the resources will be shared, and this is a very open community. Feel free to contact any of our speakers. I think they're very happy to help. Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good weekend.